Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wildboy94. I hope you're doing well today. First and foremost, as many of you know, I am a big horror guy, and I heard that this book was horror because of many people on the internet. I have friends in the extreme horror community who love things like Brian Keene and Jonathan Mayberry and Richard Lehman talking about this book. It seems to have risen in popularity, and apparently it's not a horror book. It was advertised as an erotica book, and I read extreme horror. There's a lot of sex and stuff there, so I was like, okay, well, it sounded like a stalker story and all kinds of cool things like that, so I said, okay, I'll check it out. My wife read it first, though. She read the whole series so far. There's two main books as a duology. Have similar titles and everything. Then there's a couple of spin-off books, and she really likes them. But she's not a horror fan, that's the thing. She hasn't really read any horror books, never read like a Stephen King book or anything yet, so she's still newer to reading, but she reads a lot more than most people. But she loved this series. She thought they were great. She thought the mystery aspect, the stalker aspect was cool. And she recommended them totally to me. And she told me this year, if I read this, and maybe all of the books from this series, which it's going to be a struggle. I'm going to try, but it's going to be a struggle. That she would read some of my stuff, like Robert McCammon's Swan Song or Stephen King's Bag of Bones, two of my favorite books of all time. And I took her up on that. I said, I'm going to take that challenge. So this book right here is Haunting Adeline, book number 1, by H.D. Carlton. I love the cover, by the way. Very, very nice looking cover, but this is a big book and it's heavy as shit. It feels and reads like a self-published book, and I don't mean that as a slant at it. It's just a heavy book. A lot of self-published books, like my own poetry collections from back in the day, are heavy as shit, and that's the way this is. Big old book, closer to 600 pages, and it has no right to be. So, mind you, I'm not an erotica writer, or reader, I guess. I don't know much about the expectations of that aside from sex, and more sex, and more sex. I understand that. So my wife warned me there was more horror stuff to this than sex stuff, and I kind of agree, but I kind of disagree. There's a lot of sex in here, and it's very weird shit. But let me, I guess, start with the plot, I guess I could go for. There's a girl named Adeline. She's a writer for a living. She has kind of not the best relationship with her mom, and she moves out to either her grandmother's house or her great-grandmother's house. I think it was both, matter of fact. But she moves there after they're gone. It's kind of an abandoned house that has vines crawling up the side of the house. Very cool setting. From the get-go, I really liked that. Adeline has a best friend named Daya, who I also thought was kind of fun as like a hacker-type character. That sounds weird, but that plays into the story. It's kind of got some thriller elements. And she begins to see a stalker outside her window smoking out in the woods. She'll see the little flare from the cherry of the cigarette. And she begins to have encounters with this guy. But it's not like innocent. You know, a lot of people... My wife and I talked about this more and more. We disagree on this discussion here. But, you know, people nowadays in the dating realm cannot pick up on a fucking red flag if it smacked them in the face because the wind made it lap at them. And I cannot believe there are people out there who think this book is, I wouldn't say romantic, but people romanticize it. This is not a book about love. It's not at all. Very much like 50 Shades of Grey was not. Both of those books have probably done more harm to the dating realm than anything in the world. This is not like a BDSM book or anything like that the way 50 Shades of Grey was, but it is violent. Very violent. It is gory, if you like that kind of thing too, which I would argue makes it more of an extreme horror book than an erotica book, but there's so much sex in here, you could argue that it was written by Rath James White instead of H.D. Carlton. I have so many things to bitch about with this book. This is probably going to be a lengthier review, but I do have a lot to say about it. First and foremost, the stalker stuff. The stalker that we have kind of a dual personality back and forth in this book. One chapter is from our main character, Adeline. The other chapter might be from him. And his name is Zaid. And Zaid is not a good guy. People like my wife, I debate with because she says he's a good guy because of his job. He actually is very involved in protecting and trying to save kidnapped children, especially just people in general that are stuck in sex trafficking. And I respect that, but then I see the shit that Zaid does in this book. Zaid is a hypocrite. And the book never acknowledges that. Not once, not twice. It never talks about it. Not even half a time does it try to reference the fact that Zayd is an utter hypocrite, because all he does is talk about constantly how he wants to save people from unwilling relationships and stuff, save them from unwilling sexual relationships, again, like children and stuff and what they're going through nowadays. Sex trafficking is a horrific thing, and it hits me in a way as a topic that really gets to me. It's horrific. This book makes Zayd into such a hypocrite. He just, one second he's saying that he hates evil like that, the next second he's committing evil like that, constantly. Maybe not against children, but it's usually against Adeline. Dude, I hate this book. Like, I was really looking forward to the end of it because I thought there was a lot of stuff that could have happened there that my wife had hinted to. She still says that she thinks I'll love the sequel to this book called Hunting Adeline. And there's some elements in here I could agree that if that book has the setup and the promise that I think a storyteller should have, it could be really great. But after sitting through this 600-page brick right here, I don't fucking believe it, to be honest with you. I'm going to try to read it, but I have no belief that it's going to be a strong read for me. Another thing with this book, too, it's written in, like, first-person present tense, which I despise. I'm one of those people that I do not like that shit. It doesn't read well to me at all. Not blaming H.D. Carlton. There are a lot of people who write like this now. I do not get it. I like first person when it's done well, but I love kind of that passive nature of something like Stephen King's Bag of Bones or Stephen King's Dune McKee. Almost like a narrator is telling you about what happened once upon a time to them. Something about that works, and it's not for every story, but that's the way I prefer first person, with that passive tense, or past tense, or whatever. Haunting Adeline is written in first person present tense, and if you've never read a book like that, it is going to bother the shit out of you, because I've never read a book like that, I think, or at least I haven't in 10 years, and it really rubbed me the wrong way as I read the book. Between the topics and the constant rape, this is a big thing in the book, lots of rape. If you're not down for that, in a very Richard Lehman style, with the very cut off a scene to do that type of shit that happens in this book, if you're not with it with Lehman, with Richard Lehman, the author that I love quite a bit, if you're not with it in his writing style, you're not going to like this. This feels so amateur in the way it's written with that present tense first person thing. I think most of my friends who would watch this video, people like Monster Blood, people like Goosebumps Completionist, I love those channels, I recommend them highly, but those guys would not like this book at all. It's abysmal. It's so poorly written in a way that 50 Shades of Grey is worse than this, easily. I've read the first book of that years ago. I think that was my first ever and pretty much only erotica book outside of this. That did not have thriller elements and stuff. That was a plotless piece of shit book, slice of life story, basically. Haunting Adeline is not that. Haunting Adeline has a little bit of a plot. Almost. Just a little bit. More than 50 Shades of Grey, but just a little bit. But it's the Richard Lehman elements that I was hoping would be really good here that did not work out. H.D. Carlton needs to read some Lehman. I think it would really help people who are hardcore fans of this series, because I feel like it would give you more stuff to enjoy from this. Aside from Daya, by the end of the book, she's the only character I like. I can't stand Adeline. I can't stand Zayd. Adeline is just an obnoxious piece of shit. She's one of these people, one of these modern day girls who have to constantly talk all the time. They have to be contrarians about every fucking thing that you think and say or happens in the story. They can never just be chill. Never. Not one time. She says all of this stuff. She thinks she's clever, and I don't think it's an H.D. Carlton insert, like a self-insert. A lot of writers do that nowadays. I hate it with media. I fucking despise it when I see it in things like Star Wars novels or whatever. That's not what I'm seeing here. I'm just seeing somebody who thinks this character is likable, who thinks that this character is fun. And Adeline's not. She's a bitch. She's a total bitch. The way she treats her mom, despite her mom being kind of passive with her. Not passive-aggressive, just passive with her. Adeline is a bitch. I just can't stand this chick. It's not H.D. Carlton's fault. Maybe I'll come more around to her by the time Hunting Adeline happens. But with the shit that Adeline goes through in here, with Zayd constantly stalking her and attacking her, she can't keep him away, can't even go on a date and get away from him. Her friend Daya comes over, they can't not feel like they're being watched. All of that stuff felt very Lehman-esque, and I was looking forward to that. It sucks. It's so poorly done, dude. And by the end of it, with all the things my wife had promised me about it, which I think she read book 1 and 2 so close, because she's one of those people who read the whole series all the way through, she had told me that by the end of this book, it was really going to pick up on this kind of Halloween thing, because this is set during October, basically. There's kind of one of those jump scare houses, a haunt, as they're called in the community, where you go to them, people dress up in costumes, and they jump out at you in small corridors and narrow hallways and stuff. I was looking forward to that. It was like one scene in the book, you know? And I was looking forward to where it was going to go more and more. Where she read the 2 books back to back, I think she blended some of the Hunting Adeline, the sequel to this book, into the end of this book, you know? So it kind of threw me off. I read it all the way till the end. The other day I finished it, and I was thinking, dude, this has nothing really that I liked. It had elements that I could have liked that were so poorly executed that I'm just not into it, man. I'm surprised my wife liked this as much as she did, but now she'll have to read Swan Song and Bag of Bones. And Bag of Bones, I think, is one of the best romance stories ever written, if not my very favorite romance book ever written, personally. It's a great ghost story, in case you guys haven't read it. Again, Stephen King, Bag of Bones, go check that out. But it's not like this. If you like this kind of thing, go read some Richard Lehman. It'll totally be up your alley. So, with all that being said, I don't have anything else to say. It's a poorly written book with bad characters. Again, Adeline is horrible. Daya is good. Zaid, the stalker guy, is just a piece of shit. I don't care what he does for a living. I don't care that he saves children from sex trafficking, as much as I admire that. He's a hypocrite and a piece of shit with the stuff that he does and says in this book. Let me tell you, too, really quick before I end this review, the writing stuff with the present tense first-person narrative. Some of the one-liners during the sex scenes that Zaid gives to Adeline are the most cringe, low-budget porn in a hotel room that a couple of randos picked up some hooker off the side of the road type of shit that you will ever read in your life. If you've ever seen somebody trying desperately to be sexy, that's what this reads like sometimes, with some of the cringy shit that's said. It's embarrassing. It totally is. And I laughed so damn loud, my wife asked me, what? Like she got offended that I didn't, you know, take it serious. I can't read this seriously. I can't. Again, no disrespect to H.D. Carlton. It's just not for me. This book was not for me. Look at the numbers on how much this book is sold. If you ever wanted an argument for how erotica is probably the most best-selling shit out there right now, this is it. Haunting Adeline is the definitive proof of that, because I think she just signed, according to my wife, some kind of 6-figure deal on this, like just a future series or something. That is crazy to me. H.D. Carlton is not a great writer, but she's not a bad writer. She could improve with more time, with more work. This is not her first book either, which is what I thought the case was. I think she wrote a book called, like, Does It Hurt or something, which makes me laugh every time I say it out loud. Haunting Adeline is a bad book. But I don't think H.D. Carlton is like a bad person or anything, obviously. I shouldn't have to say that in a review for a book. But she could eventually be a really good author. I really believe that. This is not it, though. But this is also not for me. It was an erotica novel that I would argue is more of an extreme horror novel, that people who are loving this as erotica readers don't understand that they like horror now. If they like this, they like horror and don't realize it more than likely. My nose is itching. My allergies are killing me, dude. Anyway, Haunting Adeline, 600-page brick, took me like 2 months to read this, and I've been reading it since basically Christmas, and I wanted to like it. I really did, because I love a lot of stuff like, again, James James White, who wrote The Resurrectionist, and I'm just not down for this. This is not a good book. If I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, at least it had a little bit of plot in there that I was interested in. There's some good kind of storytelling bits towards the end, not in the writing, obviously, but more in the what could be a setup for the next book, Hunting Adeline, which I'm kind of looking forward to, but I don't want to read anytime soon because I just don't want to sit through another 600-page brick of just stupid bullshit and poorly written shit. So, anyway, if I had to rate Haunting Adeline on a 5-star basis, I'd give it like a 2 out of 5 stars, because it has so much set up for something that I might like in the next book, but I don't know. I don't know. Not a fan. So, anyway, have any of you folks out there read Haunting Adeline? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I'd love to hear everything you have to say about it, its sequel, Hunting Adeline, or any of the other sequels, like the one about a character named Sibby that I can't wait to read at some point. I wish I could just skip directly to that book, because that book sounds like it'd be up my alley. Sibby is a schizophrenic girl who dresses up like a doll, And that was the best part of this book. Sibby kicks ass, man. I can't wait to read that book about her. Anyway, God willing, I'll get there. Thank you all for watching, guys. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments. Like I said, God bless you all. Catch you later. Let me know if the rest of the books are better. See you later. Goodbye. God bless you.